I heard this phrase on a recovery podcast and it has changed my life. And it's this: info, not ammo. So this is information for you to learn, integrate, and grow from. It is not ammunition to beat yourself up, because when you beat yourself up, you end up battered and bruised. That is no place from which to grow and change. And if you're here, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably want to grow and change, right?
One of the things that I struggled with a lot, and I want to ask you about this because I'm confident this is something that would have come up in your 12-step program, is that we're taught that we need to have compassion for ourselves. We need to have compassion for the choices that we made, the things that we went through. And I struggled with that a lot because in my mind, compassion equaled endorsement. And I thought, well, I'm not going to endorse those behaviors. I'm not going to endorse those, those things. And I started to understand that without compassion, we fragment ourselves. Like we separate ourselves from ourselves, if that makes sense. So, there are times in my life that I shunned or shamed that part of myself and became disconnected from those parts of myself. And when we do that, we become fractured as a person. And we lack compassion for ourselves, and that means we lack compassion for other people. There's a lot of, and it prevents healing. It prevents us from moving forward. So I want to ask you about that. Like, is that, I assume that that's a component of the process. Is that, how do you?
Yeah. I'd love to address that. I'm really glad that you asked that. And there are many people who have compassion for others and they don't have compassion for themselves. So you do not require self-compassion to have compassion for other people. So it's not a requirement. You become more compassionate for other people when you have compassion for yourself. That's for sure. So I always thought that I liked myself and that I had high self-esteem. When I got in recovery, I realized I don't love myself. I don't feel worthy, and that I've been beating the crap out of myself for a really long time. And that I was kind of like scanning the horizon at all times, looking for reasons to beat myself up. I was not aware of this, even though super introspective person and all that work. Like I just didn't know. I didn't know that I catastrophized. I didn't know I ruminated. I didn't know I was beating myself up. I heard this phrase on a recovery podcast and it has changed my life. And it's this: info, not ammo. So this is information for you to learn, integrate, and grow from. It is not ammunition to beat yourself up, because when you beat yourself up, you end up battered and bruised. That is no place from which to grow and change. And if you're here, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably want to grow and change, right? So what this means is we go from, instead of judgment, we go to curiosity. And I love curiosity, Michelle, because it's neutral. Yeah. So curious, like, what is this about? And sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't need to know. But what could I do differently? What do I learn from the situation? Why do I keep doing that? And it's not because you're a piece of crap. It's because you're wounded. You have some pattern. This is meeting some kind of a need, right? And so this is one of the most important things that many of my clients take with me, because not only do I teach it to them, I remind them about it all the time. This is info, not ammo. Wait, we're not looking to beat yourself up. We're looking to change, right? And so the other thing about info, not ammo, is it comes in really handy for other people too, especially if you have a particular dynamic with someone that is irritating you. Yeah. And it's been going on for a very long time. I encourage you to look at this and go, this is info, not ammo. Like, and really, what could I do differently? Because if you have the same interaction with someone for years on end, you're half of that interaction, right? So if you change the dynamics of your interaction with that person, then the dynamics of the relationship will change. So we can't control other people, but we can influence other people. And this self-compassion part is so important. This is why most of my clients, it's one of the most important things that they learn from me, is this info, not ammo, is they start to have compassion. They stop raking themselves over the coals. And this is one of the legacies of adult children, is that we treat ourselves horribly. And that's why reparenting yourself is the solution in that program. And so reparenting yourself can be as simple as, I am now good and kind to myself. And it can be as complex as, I cultivate this whole cast of inner characters, an inner child, an inner teenager, an inner loving parent. And we talk about that critical voice in our heads in ACA as being a critical inner parent or inner critical parent. And so ACA, the way we work the ACA program is based loosely on IFS, interfamily systems theory. It's a little bit different. I would say ACA is kind of like a subset of that. Mm-hmm. But the idea is you cultivate this inner loving parent. And as that person, that persona that this is all in your imagination. And I don't know why it works, but it does. I also don't know why electricity works, but it does. I don't need to know why electricity works. I don't need to know how it works. I don't need to know how reparenting works or why. I just know that it does. So you cultivate this inner loving parent, and as they expand in their role, the inner critical parent kind of steps back a little bit, and then the inner child feels safe to express the heart feelings and all that sort of stuff, which is a lot of the work in ACA. But so many of us are so terribly wounded that we internalize that somehow that we're bad people, and that maybe if I just beat myself up enough, then everybody around me will love me. We call that self-abandonment in ACA. So I would say like the legacy of adult children is the core wound is abandonment. And it's really ironic that what we do is we abandon ourselves. And what I found, Michelle, was that when I stopped abandoning myself, I stopped being afraid of abandonment, which makes total sense because I'm no longer abandonment. Because not only am I not abandoning me, I have a higher power now that's never going to abandon me. So I don't want you to abandon me, of course, but I'm not going to cling and claw after you the way that I used to, because my wound has been not entirely healed, but mostly healed. And I'm going to be here for me. I'm not going to abandon me.